Arctic News. Climate Plan about FAQ threat extinct feedback action, policies debates debate contact more. Friday, February 3, 2023. Dire situation gets even more dire. Antarctic sea ice extent was 1.821 million square kilometers on February 19, 2023, an all-time low in the NOAA record. As illustrated by the image below, Antarctic sea ice area was 1,063,204 square kilometers on February 19, 2023, also an all-time record low. This means that a huge amount of heat that was previously reflected back into space by the sea ice is now instead absorbed by the Southern Ocean, in a self-reinforcing feedback loop that results in further sea ice loss, in turn further speeding up the temperature rise and making the weather ever more extreme. Arctic sea ice extent was 14,271,000 square kilometers on February 19, 2023, the third lowest extent in the NOAA record for the time of year, as illustrated by the above image. Global sea ice extent reached a record low of 15,500,000 square kilometers on February 11, 2023, as illustrated by the above image. The situation is dire. The dire situation is further illustrated by the image below, showing high sea surface temperature anomalies, from 1981 to 2011, over the Southern Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean and the Arctic Ocean on February 19, 2023. Given the dire situation regarding sea ice and sea surface temperatures, Arctic sea ice may fall dramatically later in the year. Furthermore, emissions, ocean heat and greenhouse gas levels all keep rising. Keep in mind that carbon dioxide reaches its maximum warming some 10 years after emission, so we haven't been hit by the full wrath of carbon dioxide pollution yet. Accordingly, the temperatures keep rising. An earlier analysis concludes that we have already exceeded the 2 degrees Celsius threshold set at the Paris Agreement in 2015. These dire conditions spell bad news regarding the temperature rise to come, the more so since, on top of these dire conditions, there are a number of circumstances, feedbacks, and further developments that make the outlook even more dire. Circumstances that make the situation even more dire. Firstly, as illustrated by the image on the right, adapted from NOAA, we're moving into an El Niño. It looks like it's going to be a very strong El Niño, given that we've been in a La Niña for such a long time. Moving from the bottom of a La Niña to the peak of a strong El Niño could make a difference of more than half a degree Celsius, as illustrated by the image below, adapted from NOAA. Click on Images to enlarge. Temperature anomalies can be very high during an El Niño. The February 2016 temperature on land only was 2.96 degrees Celsius above 1880 to 1920, and in February 2020, it was 2.79 degrees Celsius higher, as illustrated by the image below, created with screenshots taken on February 15, 2023. Note that 1880 to 1920 isn't pre-industrial. Secondly, sunspots look set to reach a very high maximum by July 2025, as illustrated by the next two images on the right, adapted from NOAA. Observed values for January 2023 are already well above the maximum values that NOAA predicted to be reached in July 2025. If this trend continues, the rise in sunspots forcing from May 2020 to July 2025 may well make a difference of more than 0.25 degrees Celsius, a recent analysis found. Thirdly, the 2022 Tonga submarine volcano eruption did add a huge amount of water vapor to the atmosphere. Since water vapor is a potent greenhouse gas, this is further contributing to speed up the temperature rise. A 2023 study calculates that the submarine volcano eruption near Tonga in January 2022, as also discussed at Facebook, will have a warming effect of 0.12 watts/m superscript 2 over the next few years. Feedbacks and developments making things worse. Then, there are a multitude of feedbacks and further developments that could strongly deteriorate the situation even further. On top of the water vapor added by the Tonga eruption, there are several feedbacks causing more water vapor to get added to the atmosphere, as discussed at moistening atmosphere. Further feedbacks include additional greenhouse gas releases such as methane from the seafloor of the Arctic Ocean and methane, carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide from rapidly thawing permafrost on land. Ominously, November 2023 temperature anomalies are forecast to be at the top end of the scale for a large part of the Arctic Ocean, as illustrated by the tropicaltidbits.com image below. Some developments could make things even worse. As discussed in earlier posts such as this one and this one, the upcoming temperature rise on land on the northern hemisphere could be so high that it will cause much traffic, transport and industrial activity to grind to a halt, resulting in a reduction in cooling aerosols that are currently masking the full wrath of global warming. Falling away of this aerosol masking effect could cause a huge temperature rise, while there could be an additional temperature rise due to an increase in warming aerosols and gases as a result of more biomass and waste burning and forest fires. A huge temperature rise could therefore unfold soon, causing the clouds tipping point to be crossed that on its own could result in further rise of 8 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, humans are likely to go extinct with a rise of 3 degrees Celsius, as illustrated by the image below, from an analysis discussed in an earlier post. Conclusion. The dire situation we're in looks set to get even more dire, calling for comprehensive and effective action, as described in the climate plan. Link SIG, National Snow and Ice Data Center https://www.ns